as a leader, you very quickly learn that you cannot do the job of a team of five. You cannot do the job of a department of 100. You cannot do the job of a CEO of 300 people. You've got to empower other people. So that means you're creating an environment, you're giving them support, you're being their therapist once in a while when they need it, you're inspiring them, you're giving them the vision to go away and do it. You cannot do all of that yourself. So don't even try.
Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. What gets you up in the morning? What drives your decisions? What do you stand for? No idea, not even sure where to start? I use my values to guide my life and career. It's the basis of how I've built boundaries for myself and stuck to them. Are you ready to dig into what matters to you? Go to thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet. That's thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet to get to your core values and take action on what matters most. Welcome to this week's episode of the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. I'm excited to share my discussion with our guest, Jim Stevenson. Jim Stevenson is the founder and CEO of the Bletchley Group, a transformation consultancy who makes growth the objective of your strategy and the result of your transformation. He is also a partner in Spark International, a boutique fundraising and M&A firm. As well as his consultancy, he coaches CEOs and the C-suite on the issues their organizations face while growing. In my conversation with Jim, we talked about his non-traditional career journey and pivotal points along the way. He reflected on his leadership values of curiosity, growth, and empowering teams through culture. We talked about the struggles that Jim sees within C-suite teams, including siloed thinking. We discussed tactics to ensure that as you grow your leadership, you use integrated cross-functional thinking and consistent measurement to drive the growth you want. Jim gives us tangible examples from his clients and his own career of how to lead with curiosity and become more successful by seeing the bigger picture. Let's get started. I want to just welcome you to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you very much. I'm excited to chat with you and tell your listeners any information I have that will be valuable to them.
Yeah, and I want to start just before we hit record. We were talking about your career journey, and I want to dig in there first, if that's okay. So I know your career has not been a traditional one, and I think that's what is so exciting to kind of dig into it and understand it. So let's dig into that, if that's all right. Tell me more about your career path.
Absolutely. It's very bizarre. I love it because it is so bizarre. And I'll try and be quick because I can talk for hours on it. So the edited highlights, if you like, are I started out life in Scotland in a role called a quantity surveyor in construction. And it very much is a third law, a third finance, and a third construction. And I was terrible at the construction part, but I liked the law. And so very commercial background. And I love that. It gives me my entire career has been based on that commercial background, bizarrely coming from construction. But then I moved from there into my passion, which was technology, writing code. And back in the day, we called it e-business, and now you'd call it digital technology. And I was the technology guy working with marketing teams on the digital business. And then I moved to working with the marketing teams, advising them on what technology to use, how to use it. And I became self-employed. I've been self-employed for 24 years now. I became the global digital director for Bacardi for a couple of years, which was amazing. I moved on from there, did some work with Selfridges, the retailer in the UK, very prestigious retailer, doing some corporate social responsibility things with them. Moved on to another retailer in the UK called Marks and Spencer, kind of like the Nordstrom of the UK, not
Mhm.
quite as big, but that type of vibe. And I helped them restructure their e-commerce teams. And they then 6 months afterwards, they reported to the London stock market. They'd reorganized their e-commerce teams and made an extra 116 million, which was amazing. I then went out to a company in Switzerland who had just been bought into by KKR, the big VC firm. And KKR were a bit frustrated it wasn't growing quickly enough. So through a friend of a friend, I was asked if I would go in and help them. So over about 12, 18 months, I was going out there every couple of weeks, restructuring that company, realigning them to their customer, understanding where the value was and where the customers were getting blocked. And then about a year after that, KKR sold their stake in the business, and the company had grown from a 300 million valuation to an 850 million valuation, which was pretty cool. If they'd given me an extra 6 months, that could have been my unicorn. I didn't
Mhm.
know. I was so missed it. Worked with another company in Switzerland as well, and then I came back to the UK, working with some smaller startups, some small, medium-sized businesses, 25, 50 million turnover type businesses. One of which, again, private equity asked me to go in and help. They were looking to exit the business within a 12-month window. So they wanted a whole new strategy, a whole new invigorating environment, get the company all aligned behind that. But it turns out that the company's governance wasn't what it should have been, let's say. So the money that I was expecting to use as working capital wasn't available to me. So that instantly became a turnaround, which is very different to preparing a business for exit. But I managed to turn that business around in 8 months. We sold the UK divisions of it after that, and the private equity firm held on to the European divisions of it, which they still own to this day, and it seems to be very successful for them. And then I started to work on some even smaller stuff, the startups 1, 2, 3 million, 5 million turnover, getting hugely involved in fundraising for them, giving them growth paths, giving them go-to-market plans, and then finding the money to help them actually implement all of that. So I've kind of, if there's a function within a company, I've probably been there and done it. I've been a chief marketing officer, I've been a chief technology officer, I've been a chief product officer. I've helped companies to do their strategies, to turn around, to transform. So I have a very, very broad experience. I have a friend of mine who says I get bored early and I like to build things. And my career seems to kind of follow that path.
And every example that you gave, you said, and then I went to go build this, and then we went to go turn around that, and then I went. So tell me about that process. It feels like you know kind of when you're done. How do you know what the next right opportunity to go after is for you? What does that look like? Is it a feeling? Is it a knowing? Is it a not knowing? Like what's that path and pathway look like for you?
This is probably not going to be a particularly helpful answer, but nonetheless, it's the true answer. I'm really bad at selling myself. I'm not a salesman at all, but I'm very fortunate that my previous clients like what I do enough that they often go to other jobs and recommend me in there. So for the last maybe 18 years, most of my work comes from previous clients recommending me to new
Mhm.
clients, which is phenomenal, and it's the best thing you can ever have.
Mhm.
But what it does mean is that I'm very much a generalist. I'm specific enough in what I do that I can go in and actually make a meaningful conversation about marketing, about technology. I mean, if someone asked me to write a line of code today, it would just be terrible. But I'm enough of a generalist, and I find that most clients that I work with, what comes down to their biggest problems are they're organized into silos, and therefore the gap between the silos where the problem is. And the fact that I've covered all of that, I can see into those little silos and see the little gaps and establish where it's wrong. But your question of how do I identify the next thing, it's pretty much whoever comes to me first with something exciting. I'm lucky enough at this point in my career that I don't need to work for people I don't want to work for.
Mhm.
So if it's not something that's kind of I've not done that before, actually that's a problem that I'd love to get involved in sorting, and helping a company to address it. But pretty much everything I do at the moment is whether it's marketing, technology, product development, whatever, it all centers around helping companies to grow. So the next thing is, do you need to grow?
Mhm.
Is it exciting? And is it something that is going to get me going? Because no one wants to kind of work in an environment where they're not motivated and they're not passionate about it. So yeah,
Yeah. And it seems like the relationships that you have are an important part of that too. You want to work with and partner with people that you've worked with before, or that's an important part of that collaboration and partnership. Is that right?
yeah. I mean, I don't often go into. It does happen occasionally. I don't often go into new organizations working with people I've worked with before,
Mhm.
but it's the people I worked with before that's recommended me into those new organizations. And that's always really nice. I mean, there's nothing better than going to a new client, a new organization, and before you even get there, they're excited for you to be there. They're optimistic for what you can do to help them with it. It's kind of pushing an open door when you go in and say, "This doesn't work." You don't get the kind of pushback, or at least you don't always get the pushback that says, "Yeah, we disagree with you." It's like, why are you saying that? Help us understand what that is, and then you can explain it to them, and then they buy into the fact that actually that might not be the best way of doing something. How are we going to change it? How are we going to improve? How are we going to get better? How are we going to grow? So that's always helpful.
Yeah. I loved one of the things that you described. You said that you were kind of the bridge between some of the silos and like
Yeah.
your outward and kind of objective view of it can see some of those things that when you're in the silo, you can't see it. And so when you're working with CEOs and folks in the C-suite, how can you and your lens help them even become better leaders to get out of their silos so that they can see that? Because you're not going to be there forever, right? And so
Yeah.
how do you think they can do that to kind of sustain? And what are some of the things that you try to do and bring to them that helps them do that?
Yeah, there's a couple of really important things that most people miss when, at least in my experience. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of brilliant people out there that don't miss this, they understand it. But in my experience, there's a couple of things that is common through clients. The first one is understanding who your team is.
Mhm.
If you're in the C-suite and you're the marketing officer or the technology officer, your team isn't the technology team, the engineering team, the product team, or the marketing team. Your team is the C-suite. They're your peers. It's the C-suite that's going to drive the business forward. You lead your function. You lead the engineering team. You lead the marketing team. They're not your team. You're their leader. You're not their friend. You're there to motivate, inspire, coach, work with them to drive them forward. But your team is the C-suite team. That's your peers, and that's who you need to bond with, and that's who you need to align with. The second thing that goes into that same concept is OKRs. Everyone talks about OKRs, and no one actually ever does them particularly well. The number of organizations I see that they've ticked the box, we do OKRs. And it's like, how's it working for you? Oh, well, we missed them. We missed them all the time, but we still do them. And for me, OKRs, the concept of it is wonderful, but to make them work effectively, one, they need to be challenging. So you should be missing them 30% of the time. You should be hitting them 70%. If you're hitting them all of the time, you're not ambitious enough. You're not driving yourself forward. If you're missing them all the time, they're just the wrong ones, and it's just not working for you. But the other important thing about them is the OKR should be cross-function.
Mm,
An OKR should not just be for one specific team. It should be across the organization. It should then cascade down. But if you don't have cross-functional OKRs, your teams aren't working together. You're not encouraging them to collaborate. You're not giving them the right objective. You're telling them to be functional within their function and to drive that. That doesn't drive your business forward. You need OKRs that go across the whole organization. So your marketing people have to talk to your product people. Your product
mm,
people need to talk to your engineering. Everyone needs to talk to customer service because everyone forgets about customer service. And they're probably the ones that know the most about your customers and what their frustrations are and things like that. So the OKRs need to be across the functions, and that helps to break down those silos.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more in terms of this misplaced idea of like my team is the team I lead versus my peers. I see that a lot in a lot of the companies that I work with or the individuals that I coach. And often I think the C-suite is just so busy that they're not spending time together and they really don't have they really are just in their silos and they don't sometimes have the broader view of I am, the voice of my
Yeah.
function, but really my job is to collaborate with my peers to drive growth forward. I think sometimes we're very stuck in our own agendas, our own lens, maybe trying to protect our teams and all those kinds of things. Are you seeing that it's becoming easier, harder for folks to do that as we continue in kind of hybrid work and all of that kind of stuff, just kind of the changing world of work? Is it helping us? Is it hurting us to kind of build more of these peer relationships?
Completely. I see where you're going. I think it's probably not changing fundamentally the basis of how organizations are, but I think that's only because they were so bad to start with.
Yeah.
They haven't been doing this. Working remotely doesn't help. It's very difficult to build a rapport, a relationship with someone when you're working remotely. I love working remotely. I find it really, really helpful, but you then have to put the effort into actually going and meeting people. You
Yeah.
have to build that relationship. And whether you do that over a coffee, whether you do that by going into an office 2 days a week or 4 days a week, or you have to put that effort in. The team does not form, a team does not bond if everything is remote. It just doesn't. So you have to put that effort in to make it work. And I've not seen this, but I would be optimistic. The fact that you're not seeing your peers on a daily basis means that when you do go into the office and
Mm.
see them, you'll put more effort in.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've not seen that, but I live in hope.
Yeah. Yeah. My award-winning book, Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want, is now available in audiobook. Since the book released just last year, the biggest question that I've gotten from readers is it available in audiobook? In this book, you'll get to hear my most pivotal career stories and some of the successes of my clients as you learn about the Values First framework and how you can take action on your life and career. The audiobook is narrated by me, so if you love this podcast, you'll love the audiobook. Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want is now available on Audible and iTunes. It seems like, if you are in the C-suite, this idea of getting out of your silo, looking up and out is just another skill that you're going to have to continue to build. And obviously looking after your team, leading your team through that strategy, through those cross-functional OKRs and goals and all those kinds of things. Are there any other tactics or mechanisms that you see teams that are doing this really well besides like spending that intentional time? Are there C-suite leaders that that do things differently to stay connected, to be more integrated as opposed to siloed?
I'm not sure if I know of anyone that does it well. I mean, I think everyone does it the best way they can, and different circumstances dictate different tactics. The companies I worked for in Switzerland were particularly good at it, but it's a small country. The culture is very kind of defined, and therefore the mechanism for talking together and bonding was very kind of defined as well. As for tactics, I don't honestly know of any other than actually going and meeting with people. I used to work with the Guardian newspaper. I launched the Guardian to the USA, and I had this thing that any one of my team, it was almost like a code word. When we were, this is before we were working remote, so it's slightly different. Any one of my team could come and say, "Do you want a coffee?" And that was a code word for "let's go and chat." It got problematic when I was having 9 or 10 coffees a day. That was not good for my health. But it was a nice, easy way for people to kind of say, I need to chat. We'll just let's get this kind of going and bonding with the team. And I think with the Guardian, I started off when I started there was 70 in the team, and we grew to 170. So making sure that those bonds were working, making sure the team was gelling, And I never talk about creating teams. I always speak about shaping teams,
Mm.
because the shape of the team is more important than the creation of the team. You can create a team easily. The shape of the team, the skill set, the personalities, that's what's going to make it bond. So maybe the answer to your question is, how do you make all of this work? You hire the right people to start with. And if you've hired the right people, empower them, give them the freedom, give them the to just go away and deliver what you need them to deliver. And if you've not hired the right people, that's where your problem is.
Yeah, it feels like you've hit it right on the nose. This idea of, if you are spending so much time in your own silo, do you not trust them? Are you not empowering them for a reason? Are they not a high performing team for a reason? Did you hire the wrong people? Do you
Yeah.
know what you're hiring for? And then if you can let it go, let them, deliver on their goals, build cross-functional relationships, drive for growth. It gives you less time that you need to be in that silo, and to be
Yeah.
able to broaden yourself and your own thinking.
Yeah, completely. So I think a lot of how teams perform
Mm.
comes down to your hiring process. And I think the hiring process itself comes down to your own confidence in your ability. I love the fact that good managers don't need to take credit for other people's work. You take the credit for hiring the right team, setting the right goals, giving them the right vision, giving them the right environment to be successful. That's what a good manager does. The team then go away and deliver against that. And if you've hired the right team, that's all you need. It isn't rocket science, but there is a micromanagement and a lack of confidence, especially in new managers who feel that they need to be micromanaging, they need to be involved, they need to be doing something. And I think that is something that is team members going to team leaders, going to directors, going to leadership. That's always a challenge I've seen all the way through. It's they bring with them the baggage of, my last job was to tell you what to do, and that's not helpful as you move up. As you move up the ranks of corporate America, you need to learn that your skill needs to change. You were promoted for a reason. You've got a skill. Have confidence in that skill. Give your team the freedom that they need to make it work.
Yeah, your team wants the freedom. They do.
Yeah,
They do. They want to deliver. They want to be able to have that autonomy to do it as well.
yeah,
We talked about another skill that's going to be just important. It's very, it seems similar to this, but a little bit different. This idea of being able to just see the bigger picture. So yes, it is outside of your own silo, but tell me about, sometimes it feels like some people are just better at this than others. They have a natural gift for it. I do some personality assessment in some of my coaching, and I see that measured in a couple of different ways. Sometimes people are just more big picture people. Sometimes people are more tactical, or more implementation. They can execute. And so as you get higher in the C-suite, you're, I think really you need to, like you said, you need to see the big picture more. You have to integrate more. And so how, if you are not naturally inclined to see the big picture, what are some things that you need to do? You need to be thinking of, you need to challenge yourself to think differently, to be able to do that, to be able to be successful in those roles.
yeah. I mean, the first thing I would say is, if you're not seeing the big picture, or that's not your nature, I would question why you want that job. In technology specifically, there's always the discussion of, if you're good in technology, you have to give up your technology to become a manager, because that's the career path. And it shouldn't be that. You should be able to make a good salary, have a good career, and have a career path plotted out for you that means that you continue doing what you're good at. The kind of the opposite of the Peter principle. Let's allow people to be what they're good at, rather than kind of hiring them to the level of their own incompetency, I think it is. So first thing is, why do you want that job? And if you don't have a career path that allows you to do what you're good at, then maybe you need to change organization to give you that. The second thing for me is the big picture always came from curiosity.
Mm.
It's, if you work in customer service, go away and speak to the sales team, go away and speak to the marketing team, go away and speak to the engineering team, understand how the organization is working, understand where it's coming from. And then you start to learn what other people's challenges are, what other people's pain points are, and how you can help them and how they can help you. And that was always something that was really, really interesting for me. It was that curiosity. to understand that big picture. I did have a really good lesson in big picture with one of the companies I worked with in Switzerland. It was private equity owned, and their servers that held everything together, it was coming to the end of life. And it's like, well, we need to move it out to the cloud. The only logical thing for the business to do was move it out to the cloud, and recommended that we move it to the cloud and repurpose some of them and things like that. And it was all very logical. And they came back and said no. And I couldn't for the life of me understand why someone would make such a bizarre decision. And of course, it was because the private equity firm had already lined up a buyer. And if they moved things to the cloud, that would impact on the business valuation just at a point they were trying to sell it. Didn't even occur to me at the time. But the big picture was we don't want to be spending money on operational expenses because that impacts the company's valuation. We'll live with what we've got. We'll keep patching it. We'll keep doing it. And when you understood that that was their motive, the decision they made perfect sense. I didn't see that big picture. I completely missed that. And yeah, so for me, it's always a case of curiosity. Well, understand why you're doing what you're doing. If you're in a publicly listed company, you'll find that an awful lot of the decisions that are actually being made are not the right ones for the business, but they're the right ones to shore up your share price because it's coming to a investor call or an annual general meeting or something. And that's where the decisions are being made to shore up that share price. And that's curiosity to understand that that's what's driving the decision making. So don't ask for money before the AGM, ask for some capital after the AGM. Time it so that you're doing it well. Give the benefit that you can deliver with it, but take the money afterwards. So little things like that, by being curious about the business, you can understand why decisions are made, even what you think are the stupid decisions. But then it allows you to understand it better, and you're all working to the same goals.
I love it. Lead with curiosity. We're also gonna be kind of building relationships along the way, be more integrated within some of these goals and how we're measuring them as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to measure it. If you don't see it, you can't improve on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then actually use your goals. How about that?
Yeah, completely. I remember this is going to be very bizarre for a business show, but I used to teach advanced driving, and completely bizarre. But observation within advanced driving is just key. If you cannot see it, you cannot react to it. So data, measurements, metrics, feedback is all really important. But then understanding it. So in advanced driving, I was always taught if you're going through a residential area and you see a soccer ball, it's guaranteed that probably about 20 feet the other side of that soccer ball, there's a kid running after it. So it's not just about seeing the soccer ball. It's about seeing the soccer ball and recognizing that there's a kid 20 feet somewhere. Suddenly now what I'm looking for is that the soccer ball told me to look for a child 20 feet away because they're not paying attention to me. I need to pay attention to them. And it's the same in business. It's not just about having the data to you. It's about understanding the data, understanding what the data means, understanding how you can react to that so that actually you're getting that bigger picture again.
Oh, I love that. And I love that we just unlocked another part of your career journey that you didn't mention before. That's awesome.
Yeah, to be honest, that was something I did voluntarily, so it wasn't really a job, but I loved doing it. It was fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. You've mentioned throughout kind of our conversation so far, several things that have made me guess what your leadership values are. So building, maybe leading with curiosity. It feels like there's also just new ways to unlock growth, things that you've not done in the past. What are some other things that you value, especially in your leadership journey?
To be honest, I've never thought about this and written it down, but I'm going to do that after this because it's a really good question. For me, it's about empowering others. As a leader, you very quickly learn that you cannot do the job of a team of 5. You cannot do the job of a department of 100. You cannot do the job of a CEO of 300 people. You've got to empower other people. So that means you're creating an environment, you're giving them support, you're being their therapist once in a while when they need it, you're inspiring them, you're giving them the vision to go away and do it. You cannot do all of that yourself. So don't even try. create an environment where people want to be successful, where people want to get bought into your success. That for me is fundamental. I love the quote. I think it was in fact, it could have been Peter Drucker. I love Peter Drucker as well, who said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And I love that. If you don't have the right culture, you're done for. So focus on your culture, focus on giving people, focusing on diversity, focus on giving people equality and inclusion. The Dan Pink, mastery, autonomy, and I forget what the third one is. All of these things come together. But what you want to do is, at least in my mind, is you want to have people who are aligned with what you're trying to achieve, buy into what you want to achieve, and feel empowered to go away and help you do it. Because they will come up with ideas and ways of improving and ways of delivering things you could never think of.
Yeah.
So just accept it. I've just accepted the fact that I'm employing people who are way smarter than I am. I'm giving them the direction and what we're trying to achieve, and they're going to go away and make the whole thing shine. And give them credit for it. It's not for me to take credit. I take credit for the bits that I do, which is creating the environment, employing the right people, the vision and the strategy. They're the ones that implement it. They're the ones that delivered on it. Give them the credit for it. I love that. I had an amazing boss at The Guardian, a lady called Tanya. And at the time, agile and product development weren't really a big thing in the UK. But we brought some people over from Silicon Valley to the UK to help us with that. And there was a guy, Marty Kagan, who we brought over, he's written several books on how you do product development. And Tanya took her leadership team out for lunch with Marty. And I remember just sitting there in awe as Tanya kind of went around the entire group, explained to Marty what that person did and gave them their 15 minutes of fame with Marty. And it was just such a wonder. She just she facilitated it. She didn't need to feel that I'm the boss. I've done all of this. I'm taking credit for everything. She literally just worked around the entire table at lunch and kind of said, this is Jim that did this. This is Tony who did this, and just allowed us all to have that kind of bit of spotlight. And it was wonderful. And she obviously knew what she was doing. She's a wonderful leader. She's a wonderful person. But she recognized that that's what we all wanted, because at that point in our life, we were just so ingrained in Marty's process and how he did it in his books and everything. It was just, yeah, that's leadership, true leadership.
Yeah. And I love that you remember it so well. Of course you
Oh
do,
yeah,
because you felt valued, right?
yeah, and it was the presence of mind that she had in doing it.
Mm-hmm.
She could easily just kind of had a normal lunch. Everyone was there chatting away. Two or three people would have got to speak to Marty, and the rest would have been forgotten and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
felt slightly kind of dismissed. And
Yeah.
she made the point, and it was a very conscious thing she did to
Mm-hmm.
make her team feel included and get everyone involved. And yeah, true leadership.
Yeah. It feels like being intentional and building the culture that you want at the team or organizational level. It's all connected, because then you can bring in and hire people that are aligned with that. And then,
Yeah,
like you said, empower them to do their roles and reward them along the way. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. One of the things that I've always struggled with, and I even struggle today, is I feel that all of these things are intertwined. So breaking them out into individual things that say you do this, you do, and I don't think you can. I think you need to look at it as the bigger picture, because your culture interfaces with your organization structure, interfaces with your employment and hiring processes, interfacing what you deliver and how you manage and how you set objectives, and they're all so intertwined. You can't pick one out and say this is what we're doing here. You need to think about it as a holistic whole, and then once you've got that holistic whole working, step back and watch the magic.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your thought leadership with us today, your career journey, and all of these ways that we can think more integrated and getting out of our silos and thinking bigger to become better leaders and to drive growth for the business. So thank you so much for your time today. What is the best way to stay connected to you?
My website has everything in it, which is bletchleygroup.com. So Bletchley after Bletchley Park in the UK. And that's probably where the best place is. You can contact me there or on LinkedIn. But yeah,
Awesome.
it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Having me on the
thank
show.
you. And we'll put all of that info in our show notes so that folks can get it easily.
Cool.
But thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to you.
I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. By leaving a review, you are helping others find this content. We will be featuring 5-star reviews on air in upcoming episodes. Editing and support for the podcast is done by S&E Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.